Hi there, it's Tamara Doris, your Sacramento real estate professor and your Sacramento real estate professional. And today I want to talk about something known as stale listings. That doesn't sound good, does it? Stale listings. What are stale listings? Stale listings are homes that have been sitting on the market and they have not sold. That should not be a problem, but let's face facts. It is a problem if you want to sell your house and it hasn't sold. What I mean by it shouldn't be a problem is that if the 3 golden rules are observed and followed, then it shouldn't be a problem. So here's how it breaks down. The first 7 days that your home is listed, you should be getting lots of views, lots of online hits. Your agent should be telling you how many views online you're getting. You should be getting lots of foot traffic, agents showing it. You should be getting lots of foot traffic at open houses. And you should have an offer or two in the first 10 days. If you don't, then something's off the mark and it's going to be one of these 3 things. But I want you to really remember this, that the first 7 days are just golden. And a lot of sellers will say, well, let's start out with a high price, then we can reduce it. Yeah, you can, but it's kind of like how when you go to Nordstrom Rack and it's like the for sale price, it becomes stale in that people think, what's wrong with it? Why didn't it sell? And this is very much consumer psychology. This isn't anything that people are being arrogant or entitled. It's just a fact that if your home has been sitting on the market for a long time, or what's deemed a long time, then it makes people wonder what's wrong with it. And nothing's wrong with it probably, right? Or we hope. Okay, so let's look at the fact that the first 7 days are the most important. So all 3 of these pieces have to be in place. But we don't know when we first list a home. We don't know for sure what the market's going to do. Right now in Sacramento, California, it's mid-April 2026. Interest rates are high. Buyers are afraid. There's a war going on. So buyers are like taking a beat. They're like, I don't know yet. So if you have a listing that just went in on the market and you haven't gotten any foot traffic, that's a problem. If you have a listing and you haven't gotten any offers in the first 7 to 10 days, that's a problem. So let's look at what one of the 3 things they are, and you can decide what it is in your case if that's you. The number one that reigns supreme over all other things is price. If you look at this channel, I have other videos on pricing, but it is so important. And I think sellers sometimes can underestimate the importance of it. A seller can say, well, you know what? I'll start out here and then I can come down if it doesn't sell in the first 2 weeks. That is a bad strategy. Why? Because I just said the first 7 to 10 days are the most critical. It's when you get the most excitement. It's when buyers are anticipating. It's when you get the most traffic. It's when you get the most competition. So you definitely want to have it priced right to begin with. If you overprice your property, you're not doing yourself a favor. Putting it on sale later is not a great strategy. So price is always the first thing to look at. The second is exposure. Now, this isn't you, this is your agent. If your agent doesn't have your property on at least 10 the big real estate websites, isn't doing Facebook ads, isn't running open houses, isn't doing social media reels and clips and things of that nature, that's an exposure problem. And last but not least is presentation. And this really has to do with both you and your agent. Because your agent, who is an expert in your market, should tell you if it's not up to par. Now, granted, sometimes sellers are like, I'm not paying for anything. I just want out. I just want to sell the property. That's okay, but then you have to price it congruent with that attitude, right? If we're going to say, I just want to sell, I don't have any money to put into it, that's fine, but you're going to have to price it congruent with that outlook that it just needs to sell. Because any house will sell when it's priced right. My mom was an agent. She was a very good agent. And, that's how I had a mom that was an agent who brought me into the business. But ultimately, she used to always tell me, she used to say, Tamara, there's not a house on the planet that won't sell if it's priced properly. And I remember, because I look back fondly, at one time they were doing an auction, and it was this old, decrepit, blah, and it was an auction, I guess just for the property the house was on, because the house just had to be torn down, and they listed it at $1. And so what you were really buying was the land, but you were also buying the headache of having to deconstruct and demolish that house. But I always think of my mom when I remember that memory, because every house will sell if it's priced properly. Obviously, yours is not going to only be $1, but you get the point. The third one, after the exposure that you've gotten and after the pricing is right, is presentation. What does it look like? What does it look like? Now, I said that your agent should help you with this. And really, sometimes the only thing that an agent can do is say, we don't have any curb appeal. We need to do this, this, and this. And if you can't and you don't want to, well, that's one thing. But, there's a lot of things that we can do that don't cost money, like just cleaning things up, pressure washing the front of the house and the porch, getting a couple plants, making sure that the yard is manicured or well mowed, putting some planters and marigolds out. Presentation is really, really important. And right now we're just talking about curb appeal, because let me tell you, most buyers, when they get a property address, they will drive by first to see if they like the outside of the house. I think that's a terrible way to go house hunting, because sometimes inside the house it will be a real gem and people will throw it away because they're like, no, I don't like that. Oh, it's got peeling paint or whatever it is. So if you're a buyer, I really encourage you to rethink that, because you may be missing out on a real gold mine of a house. But if you're like most buyers and you drive by and you're like, oh, that doesn't really look pretty in the front, don't let that dissuade you. It could be great inside. Maybe not, but you may still get a good deal. So back to being the seller and the presentation isn't up to par. Well, you have to really weigh this against consumer psychology, buyer psychology, and cost. So if you don't want to spend $200, and I'm just randomly picking a number, you don't want to spend $200 to make the presentation a little bit better on the curb appeal, do you think you're going to lose out on $200 or more? Because I say more. What if in the inside it just hasn't been painted and there's holes in the walls because you took down all your pictures and it just is dull and lifeless inside? You've got it all cleaned out because you've already moved out. Now you really need to sell. A fresh coat of paint can go so far. And you're like, well, I don't want to spend $1,000 on paint. Do you think you're going to make that $1,000 back? Yes. And worse yet, if you don't invest that $1,000, how much money are you going to lose? When I say how much money you're going to lose, I'm talking about off the offer price. I'm talking about in the utilities and the mortgage and the care that you're taking to keep this house just surviving, waiting to be sold. There's a big cost involved in that. Does that make sense? So you may say, okay, I'm moved out, I'm in my new house, I'm not going to spend another penny on this house, even if it really needs to be painted, because just whatever. But you still are making that mortgage payment, you're still paying your electricity and your gas, your garbage, whatever. So it's costing you to not invest in your home to make it more presentable. So that's really important. Each one of these topics, price, presentation, and exposure, deserve their own video. And I will do videos on all of them. But for right now, when I do those, I like to be out in the field so I can really show you examples. But for right now, when I'm just sitting here talking to you, I really want you to understand that it's not normal, even in a buyer's market, it's not normal for a house to sit on the market for 60 days. Now, if your agent, after the first 2-3 weeks, hasn't said, we need to reevaluate, how's the exposure, how's the presentation, and how's the pricing? And as much as it breaks my heart to say, 80% of the time, it has to do with the pricing. Because remember what I said? The presentation, even if it's really cruddy, nothing personal, but if it's just really cruddy, it still will sell if it's at the right price. Now, the exposure part is a whole different ballgame, because if your agent is not out there marketing aggressively this property, then people aren't seeing it. And we live in a society right now that is just inundated with grabbing your attention. So they've got to have your house on social media. They've got to have it on all these websites. They need to have it in their personal email list to all of their clients. They need to be aggressively marketing it, making sure the whole world knows about this property. Sometimes when it's been a really tricky market in Sacramento, I've run Facebook ads in the Bay Area. Why? Because it was during a time when a lot of Bay Area people couldn't afford the Bay Area and they were moving up here. So I would have homes, if I had a home like say in Elk Grove, I would run ads in the Bay Area. And I literally, in one case, ended up selling a home to a family that had moved here from the Bay Area. They were moving here from Walnut Creek. because it was just so expensive down there. So, think about that. There's all sorts of marketing activities that you can do. You do the buyer brokers open house if you want to. You can do lots of open houses. You've got to get people to the house so they can see it. But if the price isn't right or the presentation isn't right, now we have a new problem, right? So those three things really, really go in handy. And I will say this on all my videos when I talk about sellers. Pricing is the most crucial, critical component because every house will sell, but it's got to be priced right. So I encourage you to ask yourself, if your home's been sitting on the market for more than 2 weeks and you haven't had any offers and you haven't gotten any exposure, like you're not getting offers and people aren't coming to look at it, there's a reason. And make sure, rule out first that it's not presentation, because people might be seeing it in MLS, seeing the address and driving by and saying, nope, not for us. Make sure that curb appeal is there. That's so, so important. But most important of all is making sure that it's priced properly. If it's not priced properly, it's not going to sell. It's not going to get people coming to look at it. It's not going to get offers. So hopefully you found that helpful. If you are in the Sacramento area and you want to have a chit chat about listing your house and getting the top dollar for it in the shortest amount of time, that's what I specialize in. So just click the link below and set up a time to chat with me, and I look forward to meeting you in person. Have a great day. Bye-bye for now.